Think about your own doubts and what kind of pain are they creating in your life? How are they standing in your way? When you have internal dialogue with yourself, you have that part of you that doubts. And this is often what people are calling self-sabotage. I assure you, you don't actually want to sabotage yourself. There are reasons and intentions behind your doubts, and they're positive, believe it or not. I want you to start getting in the habit of taking your doubts. Anytime you have one, realize that what is driving that doubt is a fear. When you can understand that, you can step back and start breaking it down. Well, what is it I'm afraid of? So when you're experiencing doubts, you want to go for something, create something in your life, or change something about yourself. And you have these doubts popping up. And then you stop and you listen to the doubt and you say, okay, well, what fear is driving this doubt? What do your doubts communicate to you? Are they communicating something that you need to pay attention to? This is why we don't want to eliminate doubt. We want those doubts to jump in the way and say, hey, wait a minute. Are we doing the right thing here? That is very valuable. Your doubts are valuable. So when they come, instead of just pushing them away or succumbing to them, communicate with them. What are your doubts communicating to you? The first thing is, are they communicating to you that you're missing some knowledge, or a skill that you need to have but don't have yet? That's pretty important. If you want to jump into a business, probably good if you do some market research. Probably good if you find someone who has succeeded in that business to find out how they did it. You're going to have to develop some skills to do that. So is that all your doubts are telling you? 10 years? Yeah, about 10 years ago, I was like, I'm really going to tackle this money thing. I'd been broke pretty much my entire adult life. And I used to tell myself that. I was like, I'm broke. I can't afford it. It was like my mantra that I didn't even realize I was saying. So I finally was like, you know what? I need to figure this thing out. Some of my doubts were communicating to me, you got to understand money, Damon, if you want to leverage it, if you want to make it. You need to understand how it works. So I started reading books on money, and it helped. Those doubts were important. If those doubts hadn't pointed that out to me, I would just be sitting there being like, well, why isn't, I'm visualizing, am I not on the right vibration? No, you got to educate yourself. That's what your doubts sometimes are telling you. You need to get the knowledge, and maybe you need to build a skill. Are your doubts pointing at some unresolved wound? This is a big one. Because when I say wound, what do you think of? Pain. There's some pain there. So maybe the doubt is like, hey, do we really want to deal with this? It's painful. And in my situation, I'm going to continue on with this whole money thing. This was an awakening whenever I realized this, because I followed the doubt. What is the doubt telling me about this? I equated money with pain. I really did. I wanted money so I could do the things that I wanted to do. And then when I didn't have it, I thought, well, money itself is limiting my freedom. It's limiting me from doing what I want to do. And so I got to go do that painful thing, doing things that I don't really want to do, but it makes money. So I just associated it all together. Money equaled pain. When I started diving into this and tracing it to its core, some interesting memories started coming up. My parents argued a lot when I was a kid, and majority of those arguments were around money. Understanding that was huge for me. I was like, no wonder I associate so much pain with money, because I'm watching my parents argue. It's very destabilizing for a child, right? I'm watching this happen, and what are they talking about? Money. I keep hearing this thing, money, 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 pain, money, pain. At such a young age, what did I pick up? That was a huge understanding that made me start to let that pain finally go, so that wound could finally heal. What a doubt could be pointing to a belief that you're not good enough or don't deserve it. This really takes an identity shift. If you have deeply held beliefs about your self-worth, these take time, but you can absolutely do this. You can eliminate that whole idea of self-worth entirely. That's what you ultimately want to do. You don't want to try to build your self-worth. You're just feeding the problem. And the reason why this one is probably the worst is because you take you wherever you go. I don't know if this business is the right business for me to get into. And so you choose a different business. But If your doubt is about you, if it's self-doubt, there's no escape. You're going to take that everywhere you go. You'll take that into every endeavor that you do. This is the big one, and this is the one that you really want to work on. It might even take you years. It took me about 2 years to really resolve most of it. And every once in a while, it peeks its head out and I go, I bet that's like a little tiny piece of that whole self-worth thing. And I'm going to go deal with that right away. This is the one you want to focus on. When you finally burn that whole thing out about not being good enough or deserving or worthy or all that stuff, when you finally burn that thing out, your life is going to change unbelievably because you're not passing it through that erroneous idea that all of it's dependent on your worth and deservingness. Just even to think now of a life where I have to maintain my deservingness and my worthiness just to hold on to what I have. That sounds absolutely miserable. Believe me, that is what I believed. I have to be worthy enough and deserving enough. And then the money's going to come. I have to prove myself. How do I prove myself? I have to make a lot of money. I have to have a lot of successes. And then it'll be true. It'll be real. I'll be worthy. But that's so fleeting. I would have success after success. I would start making more money. It didn't change anything. It's best to change this first. And then it's easier to make money or go after your endeavors once you resolve that issue. The other thing about doubts, what makes them so hard to deal with, is that your doubts don't have to be beliefs. You don't have to be convinced that the doubt is real to stop you. All you have to do is doubt it. It's so easy to scare people. If you have a belief that you can't do something, that will stop you. But a doubt doesn't even have to rise to the level of a belief to stop you. It just has to scare you enough. The counterintuitive thing here is to communicate with your doubts, connect with them. What is the fear that's driving them? What are they saying about who you are? And is it true? Is it true what they're saying about who you are? And we can go even deeper with this, because when we have doubts, we tend to have negative feelings that come along with it. And then you can ask yourself, what is the doubt? What is the fear behind it? What is it saying about me? It's mostly negative, right? And then ask yourself, what is the feeling that I'm having about this? What does it say about me? You want the answer? Almost nothing. Feelings often, especially around doubts and fears, tell you almost nothing about what's actually happening. Now, this doesn't mean that feelings aren't important. They are. They're very important. So you don't want to disavow them. You don't want to try to push them away. You don't want to try to repress them. They're real because you feel it, okay? But it's so amazing to me how much we, and I include myself, when we feel something, because that's really our reality, right? What we feel has a greater meaning about who we are, about what's happening. You can go through study after study that what we feel and what's actually happening are usually very different things. That's what your feelings tell you. You're human. Now, of course, you can go like, well, it can tell me what I like and what I don't like. What do I want to order on the menu at a restaurant? So yeah, feelings are important. They are definitely important. But when it comes to your doubts, your fears, and then how you feel about that, you're constructing this whole thing in your mind. And then you have a feeling about it and you think, well, this means something about me. It means I'm not good enough. It means I can't do it. It means this or that. No, it doesn't. It just doesn't. So remember that when you have these negative feelings. And you can just ask yourself the question, okay, well, what does this feeling actually say about me? And I like to journal, so I always say journal on that. And be really honest. Well, it means I'm this horrible person. No, be as objective as you can. Does this feeling really tell me who I am? Does this feeling really tell me I'm worthy of something or I'm not? And if you really ask that question, you pose that question to a feeling, it's going to fall apart. You'll find that no, it doesn't. None of that means anything. The money issues that I was having about 10 years ago and the feelings that I had around it, I felt like a loser. I felt really empty. Did it really mean those things about me? No. Well, I turned it around. I'm in a completely different situation right now. Why? Because I finally understood what was driving the fears. What was the mechanism behind it? The more you can process behind it, that's creating what you're feeling and your doubts, that's when you get that space from and you go, oh, wait, yeah, okay, now I see the wizard behind the curtain and it's not what I thought it was. That should give you a huge amount of relief and space. Space, it's good. To now explore going further with this. There's a saying that I saw, I think it was on the first John Wick movie. He had that tattoo, fortune favors the bold. And that's where I want to take this next. That is so true. The funny thing is, that's an action movie and he's doing bold things that are life-threatening. I'm not suggesting anyone do that. What's funny is that we often think, oh, I can't do that. I'm not bold enough or I'm not courageous enough. When you really look at the thing you feel like you're not bold or courageous enough to do, and you ask yourself, what would I really lose? Most of the time, it's nothing. A lot of those fears and doubts and everything, they're based on nothing. It's not going to affect it could affect your income if you make a bold, or if you go to a casino and you throw a bunch of money down. I don't recommend that. Oftentimes people think, oh, a bold move, like, changing careers. That's bold. It's like, okay, yeah, but what do you stand to lose? Nothing. You really don't stand to lose anything. Whenever I got a divorce, I was back in the dating scene at 37 years old. And I was in a situation where, like, okay, I own a business, so I'm not going to date my coworkers because they're my employees. I'm not going to date my clients. What do I do? Online dating, the odds are not very good for men. I think I need to actually go and approach a woman who I think is attractive. That's how I'm going to get to know and start dating again. That felt extremely bold. And most people do think that that's extremely bold, to just walk up to someone you don't know and say, hi, I think you're attractive and all of that. Then I was like, but what would I really lose if I do that? I mean, what is the worst that can happen? You can say no. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. Getting on YouTube, I consider myself an introvert. Most people disagree with that. I do a lot of extroverted activities, but that does not mean that I'm an extrovert. Getting on YouTube, a lot of people are like, well, that's pretty bold. Well, it's like, well, yeah, but nobody watches you at first. Nobody's going to see your videos at first. So you get a lot of time to figure it out. So it did seem really bold the first time I did it. And then it was like, okay, well, nobody's watching. I didn't get any views on that video. Let's do another one and another one and another one. And then gradually I was like, yeah, what would I have to lose by doing this? Even though it seems bold and courageous. It's not a big deal. I'm not going to lose my income. I'm not going to lose my kids. Most of the time we think these things are such a big deal and they're not. So it's a good thing to ask yourself, what do you really stand to lose in this? Courage is something I needed to understand. And a lot of times I think people think that courage is being fearless. Courage is not being fearless. Courage is experiencing the fear and still doing the thing anyway. That's what courage is. And so if you've done this first part that we went through, now you've got a much better understanding of your fears. Your fears are probably still there, but now you can start looking beyond them. You've got some space, some relief. Courage is saying, okay, yeah, still have these fears. You might even acknowledge that they're not rational. And then you're going to do it anyway. I travel a lot. I still get nervous when I experience turbulence on a plane. There are times where I still get nervous getting on a plane, but I know that it's very safe. I consciously know that. And so I'm not going to let the fear stop me. Courage is not that you don't feel fear. It's that you don't let the fear stop you. And you can absolutely do this. So this next part is we're going to build some context around doing what you want to do. This is, I think, a huge missing piece from people when they set goals. They don't understand building a context around this. If you've done some NLP, the well-formed outcome, which we teach in the practitioner training, works well because you're not just focusing on a single goal, you're building a context around it. And when you have a context around what you want, it keeps you from crashing. It's like the support structure you're going to build, like the scaffolding around a building. That's what context is. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this because I need to get through everything I want to teach you, but you want to make sure that when this live stream is over, spend some time really taking a deep dive on it. I love meditating and journaling, and that's where I do a lot of this for myself. That's what I recommend. I'm not saying it's the only thing. Something else that used to work well for me until I was married was taking walks, but now I always take walks with my wife and we like to talk a lot. I don't really do this during walk time anymore. I love taking walks with my wife. It's a great time to be casual and have some nice conversation, nothing serious. Unless we're talking about dinner, then it gets serious. Think about what is fulfilling to you in your life right now. We have plenty of time to go over all the stuff that's not working and all the things you don't like. How much time do you spend thinking about what is working for you right now? What is really fulfilling? Think about the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences you've had throughout your life. This is not an exercise just to make you feel good. The point of it is you're looking for clues for what creates fulfillment for you. You've experienced lots of fulfillment in your life, believe it or not. You might not be giving a lot of attention to that. Now, you're going to want to write this stuff down. What kind of life could you live that would be absolutely rewarding and fulfilling? For me, this was easy. I realized that many of my most fulfilling and rewarding experiences happened while I was traveling. So I created a hypothesis. If I make travel a major part of my life, I will have a richer, more rewarding and fulfilling life. I tested it. And it worked. I love travel. I travel so much. I need to start slowing down a little bit. And I just made that, designing my life, I was like, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. I also made a hypothesis of my business. What kind of business do I want to do? I hypothesized that I wanted a business where I could work a minimum amount of hours that I choose, doing something that I love, that didn't require anything more than a laptop and a camera so that I could work and travel at the same time. Before this, I had an insurance business and I was stuck in an office and I hated it. I wanted to go where I wanted to go, when I wanted to go, and work when I wanted to work. Now, I know some people go, that sounds amazing. It is definitely realistic. The second thing I want to say about this is it's not for everybody. It is not for everybody. When my wife started partnering with me and doing this, it took her a while to get used to this. She had never worked that way before. And she's adapted to it. A lot of times people try this out. They think they want this, and it turns out they don't. Make a hypothesis around it. Maybe it will work for you. And then you want to test it. Test, test, test. Hypothesize, test. I also wanted a life partner to share this fulfilling life with me so that I could continue traveling. And it's not like I would be doing the traveling and she would be home working or taking care of the kids. I didn't want that. I wanted her to come with me. So I wanted a partner, a life partner who either had the same type of business where she wouldn't be bound to an office or a regular job that she had to go to and answer to someone else, or I wanted her to work with me. That was a hypothesis that I had. And I tested it. And guess what? It worked incredibly well. Now I'm giving you all the ones that worked. I didn't make a list here of all the hypotheses that I tried that didn't work, but I can tell you one of them was my insurance business. And that was before I learned NLP. It was before I knew the stuff I know now. I thought if I start this insurance agency, I'll have the freedom that my father has. I'll be able to make however much money I want to make. And then life's going to be great. And none of that worked out that way. So tested it, and it was a very expensive, in more ways than just money. It was a very expensive test. What I could have done, looking back on it, is I probably should have tried out working for an insurance agent. See, do I even like this? But no, I wanted to jump headfirst into it. Paid a price for it, but I also learned a lot. When I was finally able to make that business successful, I was able to step away from it and work on the business that I truly wanted. Now, at this point where you've got some clarity about what you want to create in your life, a lot of teachers would say, okay, who do you need to become in order to create the life you want? It's a great question, but almost no teachers teach you how to figure that out. But I can tell you how. I'm not going to go too deep into it because we're running short on time. I've done several videos and we give out free PDFs on how to do this. It's a values elicitation. How you find out who you need to be is in that values elicitation. Values elicitation is basically you take what you want. It could be a goal or, usually we start with something tangible. And then you say, what is important to me about getting this or accomplishing this or having this experience? That's when the values start coming out. This is an ongoing practice. I've been doing this for years. It amazes me all the time how I know my values very well, but when I do a values elicitation, it creates insights and connects me with my values. Then I can ask myself, when I have those values, like freedom, joy, happiness, passion, these are some of my highest values. Am I a passionate person? Am I a happy person? Am I a joyful person? That's when you find out, are you your values? It doesn't feel certain and solid. That's who I need to become. I don't need to be like anyone else. You don't ever want to be like anyone else. You want to be what you value. That is the most powerful thing when you become what you value. If you want to deep dive on that this weekend, come to this weekend and you're gonna see it will change you just by understanding what your values are. When you go further with that, life will never be the same again. When you're in doubt, or when someone is in doubt, what do most people do? They wait. They wait. Their mindset is a waiting mindset. The reason most people aren't creating that life they want to be living is because they're waiting. You can say you're not doing anything, and then it opens up this void, and you kind of go, well, I need to do something. But when you're waiting, you take that away from you. You become powerless. You go, oh yeah, well, I'm waiting until I have the answers. I'm waiting until I have it figured out. Or I'm waiting for the economy to turn around. Or I'm waiting for my spouse to do X, Y, Z. Waiting is the big killer. That's what doubt does to people. If you're ready to stop being like most people, then you need to do what most people won't do. When people are in a state of doubt, they wait. If you want to be like most people and have mediocre successes or no successes at all, keep doing what most people do. What do you need to do when you're in a state of doubt? This is going to be so counterintuitive. It's even going to feel dangerous and destabilizing. But it's the thing that is going to change it for you. You're going to take action. You're going to take action when you feel doubt, and not just any action. This is the most counterintuitive thing. When we're in a state of doubt or confusion, you go like, well, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to walk through that dark door into that dark room where I don't know what's inside. This freezes people. You hear me right now telling you to take an action. Remember what I said about what you feel not really telling you very much about what's actually happening? What it feels like and what it is are two different things. You need to keep this in mind. Unless you're considering doing something life-threatening or something that could wipe out your entire life savings, which I do not recommend. Don't do those things. You are not going to ruin your life by taking action while in doubt. Remember this. You are not going to ruin your life by taking action when you're in doubt. It feels that way, but it is not that way. I mentioned earlier when I didn't have a social structure or social circle to date women, and I was like, well, what do I do? And I was like, well, there's only really one thing to do is when you see someone you're interested in, go talk to her. I doubted myself. Am I good enough? Is she going to not like me? Is she going to be disturbed by my presence? All these doubts. And I had to just go, no, I'm going to do this anyway. Because the truth is, what can really happen that's so bad? Even if her boyfriend's nearby. I've had guys approach my wife when I was at a distance, and then when they realized she was married, they go, oh, sorry. And I was like, no, don't be sorry. It's a compliment to me. No one's going to hurt you. No one's going to beat you up. You're not going to lose all your money. It's going to be okay, especially if you're being positive. If she can't accept a compliment and someone being nice to her and gently letting them down, it's not you, it's her. And I don't mean that in any way to put a judgment on women. There's nothing really bad that can happen here. People say, well, what if she rejects me? After she rejects you, you can look at yourself in the mirror. You're still you. You're still the same person. Nothing's changed. And that's what I had to tell myself. And I had to find out for myself, right? Take an action. What does that really mean? Reject me. Am I going to physically mutate? No. Is anything really going to change? No. This goes back to what I was saying about finding out the truth. We're afraid to find out the truth. Well, maybe this means I'm a loser. And it's like, well, no. When I started doing this, they thought it was great. Like somebody interrupting their day to say something nice to them. They were like, so many times it's just like, hey, I have a boyfriend, but you just made my day. So, I'm not interested, but thank you. That made me feel good. I was like, okay, not a problem. Nothing lost here. And it was exhilarating because I overcame a fear. So trust me when I say take action. If you want abnormal success, you have to do what normal people won't do. When in doubt, take action, but not just any action. You got to get this part right or it won't work. I've seen many people go, oh, okay, I'll just go take an action. Damon tells me, when I'm in doubt, go take an action. Everything's going to be fine. Then they take an action that has no stakes involved, that doesn't really do anything. It doesn't directly test that doubt they're having. They do something super easy, like let's use the example of approaching a woman. So they go, okay, I'm going to take an action. And then they go ask the woman for directions to some place when they really don't need directions. But they feel like, well, I'm doing something. I'm taking an action. It's like, no, you missed the point. You lost the plot. There needs to be stakes involved. When you take an action against a doubt, there needs to be something consequential, like being rejected or whatever you're trying to do fails. If you fail at something, you're going to learn something. It's not the end of it. But if you go into the feelings of, oh, this means this and that about me, and then you have to go back to, does this really mean this about me? Do these feelings really mean this? Okay, you can have those awful feelings, those negative feelings, and you can say, okay, I'm having these feelings, but what do I know? They don't really tell me anything about who I am. And they'll pass, especially if I don't cling to them and go, oh, this must mean something about me. So if what you try fails, you're going to learn something. Put your attention on, what happened here? And what can I learn about this? Rather than give your attention to the negative feelings. And then if you win, you get the reward, right? And there are a lot of ways you can't lose when you test a doubt. Take an action against a doubt that has stakes, that has consequences, that means something. What's going to happen when you keep doing this? Every time you have a doubt, your doubts are going to fall apart. Your doubts are going to fall away. You're only going to look at doubt as something that might be useful to bring your attention to something that you might need to be careful of or do some extra diligence around. If it's a risky investment, your doubts that are popping up are helping you. They're saying, do your due diligence. Research this first before you get into this and know what you're getting into. If you're going to take a risk, know what you're getting into. So you start leveraging your doubts to help you. Some of the most identity shifting experiences you're going to have is when you test doubts that are self-doubts. When you're doubting yourself and you act anyway, you're going to start crushing self-doubt. And when you do that, that's when you're really going to reinvent yourself. It might take some time, but you're going to connect doubt to taking action, which is counter to what most people do. Most people will sit there and wait and not do anything, but not you. You're going to associate a doubt with taking action. When you master creating a bias toward action, especially when you have doubts, you're going to play the game of life at a level most people only dream of. Think about that. If you spend 2025, every time you have a doubt, that you connect action to it to test the doubt, find out if it's true. So every time you do that and you build this bias towards action, what do you think by the end of 2025, what do you think your life is going to be like? I think you know. All right, take care.